As 2019 Joker increasingly became a more successful film, rising amounts of controversy entered the public zeitgeist, with many critics calling the film irresponsible and toxic for even displaying its visceral subject matter. But are these critiques warranted? The film stars an aspiring comedian who lives in a life rife with crime and unemployment, and through unfortunate events, was shaped into one of comics' most well-known villains. But what message is the film Joker conveying? Is it a tragedy, a comedy, or perhaps something else? With this in mind, let's discuss Joker's tragic comedy.
In a white room with black curtains near the station.
Before we begin, I'm afraid in this analysis I'll be spoiling the film rotten, so if you haven't watched Joker yet, would recommend holding off this video until then. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Smiling yet crying. Within the first few scenes of the film, the protagonist Arthur Fleck seemingly lives a life of contradiction, in which he pursues an occupation surrounding comedy and smiles, yet leads a seemingly hollow existence. The only form of companionship lays with living with his mother. But what are his motivations? What does Arthur Fleck really want in his life? Well, upon watching the Murray Franklin show on television, Arthur fantasizes for a bit, imagining that he's attending the show live. Even managed to score the personal attention of Murray, who empathizes with Arthur's own plight.
What's your name?
Hi, Murray. Arthur.
Arthur.
My name's Arthur.
Oh, okay. Well, there's something special about you, Arthur, I could tell. Where you from?
I live right here in the city with my mother.
Okay, hold on. There's nothing funny about that. I lived with my mother before I made it. Just me and her. I'm that kid whose father went out for a pack of cigarettes, and he never came back.
I know what that's like, Murray.
What is interesting about this fantasy is that it reveals Arthur's personal desires, that he wants someone to truly understand his own plight. However, a deeper statement is later heard. Upon hearing Arthur's story, Murray calls him down and says,
"That was great, Arthur. Thank you. I mean, I loved hearing what you had to say. It made my day."
Thanks, Murray.
You see all this, the lights, the show, the audience, all that stuff. I'd give it all up in a heartbeat to have a kid like you.
I find this scene to be rather tragic, that early on, what Arthur really wanted was a father, which brings to mind another fantasy of Arthur's own creation, who takes the form of Sophie Dumond. Running into her within the elevator, they manage to share a few words, or rather a brief encounter.
This building is so awful, isn't it?
From this seemingly small interaction, Arthur built an entire fantasy of being in a relationship with her, imagining that Sophie attended his comedy shows, go on dates, and even joined Arthur when he visited his mother in hospital. So a question arises, why did Arthur fantasize about this? Well, to answer that, we delve into Arthur's origins, later learning from his mother that Thomas Wayne, a prominent figure in Gotham, might very well be his father. This realization leads him to visit the man himself, in which the following interaction is interesting.
Your mother adopted you while she was working for us.
That's not true. Why are you saying that?
And she was arrested and committed to Arkham State Hospital when you were just a little boy.
Why are you saying this? I don't need you to tell me lies. I know it seems strange. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know why everyone is so rude. I don't know why you are. I don't want anything from you. Maybe a little bit of warmth. Maybe a hug, Dad. How about just a little bit of fucking decency? What is it with you people? You say that stuff to my mother?
She's crazy. You think this is funny?
Dad, it's me.
As Arthur puts it, he comes to Thomas not to gain something tangible, but to experience some form of human decency, possibly obtaining something he really wanted, a father, only to be greeted with a punch to the face. This encounter is indicative of a much larger tragedy in which Arthur longs for affection and empathy, but seldom receives it. All the while, frustration builds, which brings us over to our next point. Arthur as a character reminds me of another tale. It may be a bit odd to bring this up, but Arthur Fleck is not dissimilar to Prince Zuko found in Avatar: The Last Airbender, a show that displays the prince as desperately wanting a father figure.
For so long, all I wanted was for you to love me, to accept me. I thought it was my honor that I wanted, but really, I was just trying to please you. You, my father, who banished me just for talking out of turn. My father, who challenged me, a 13-year-old boy, to an Agni Kai. I'm gonna free Uncle Iroh from his prison, and I'm gonna beg for his forgiveness. He's the one who's been a real father to me.
Within the show, Zuko seeks to capture the Avatar, in which he believed by doing so would grant his father's affection, and by proxy, achieve happiness. However, during Book 2, hope starts to waver. The idea seeps in that Zuko may never be able to capture the Avatar, and as a result, maybe happiness is an impossibility.
There's no honor for me without the Avatar.
Zuko, even if you did capture the Avatar, I'm not so sure it would solve our problems. Not now.
And there is no hope at all.
No, Zuko. You must never give in to despair. Allow yourself to slip down that road and you surrender to your lowest instincts. In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength.
As stated by Iroh, in the darkest of times, hope is something you give yourself. If hope is defined as the wish of a particular event or action to be possible, then if you believe that the things you truly want in life are impossible, then what's your motivation in living? Give into that despair, that grim perspective, then you surrender to your lowest instincts. That hope, that feeling that something is possible to achieve no matter how unlikely it may be, grants motivation to struggle on, even if it's illogical. It's something people give themselves to defy odds. As German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once remarked, as long as you have a why, you can endure anyhow. That hope wasn't seen by Arthur Fleck. At the climax of Joker, when he is on Murray's show, he describes how nothing can hurt him anymore, that there's nothing left for him save for his lowest instincts.
You're serious, aren't you? You're telling us you killed those 3 young men on the subway?
Mm-hmm.
And why should we believe you?
You got nothing left to lose. Nothing can hurt me anymore. My life is nothing but a comedy.
But what was the transitional point? Well, after the Thomas Wayne encounter, Arthur Fleck later learned of his true past, that his mother, Penny Fleck, was found guilty of endangering her adopted child, him, even to go so far as tying Arthur up to a radiator when young. Upon realizing this, Arthur laughs in pain, noting that whatever hope he may have had of possibly attaining a father or receiving affection has evaporated. That what he really wants from life is a perceived impossibility. And upon confronting his mother at hospital bedside, he states that,
"You know what's funny? You know what really makes me laugh? I used to think that my life was a tragedy. But now I realize it's a fucking comedy."
That Arthur sees his own life as nothing more than a cruel joke that the universe dictated. But what I find truly tragic about the story, despite the carnage and the tears, it's very much brutally reactionary to the Wayne investors beating him up, to his supposed friend ratting out on owning his gun, and finding out his mother was a cruel parent. These events led to the Joker's appearance on the Murray Show, in which all hell broke loose, causing Gotham to erupt into chaos, and having Bruce Wayne lose his parents. On that note, it is often said that both the Batman and the Joker are foils to each other, that as characters they act in opposing dualities. On the subject of the former, a special insight can be found in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, in which extras include an interview with Harvey Dent, in which he expresses,
"That sounds like good spin."
It's not spin. You don't just decide one day to go put on a disguise and go fight crime. A dysfunctional society dictates that response. So if you want to get rid of the Batman, then curing what created him is the best way.
In other words, if the Batman and the Joker are opposing dualities, then perhaps the best way to stop people like the Joker is to prevent the circumstances that created him in the first place. The Joker film has collected a bit of controversy, in which some say encourages the Joker's behavior, and is irresponsible for even displaying it on screen. The train and Murray's death scenes are cited as examples. I have heard that these scenes are hard to watch, and I can completely understand why. That the film showcases a grade of violence that may be uncomfortable to watch, that a sense of guilt can be seen when the Joker retaliates, and his pain displayed within the film grants a sort of empathy. Unfortunately, pain is something everyone can relate to. That if a tragedy is defined as a disastrous event with sorrowful implications that elicits pity, and if a comedy is defined as a narrative with humorous or satirical connotations, then a tragic comedy contains elements of both, a disastrous satire. Ultimately, I view the film Joker as such, a cautionary tale. Not to bring any sort of light to the carnage found in the film, but to bring special awareness to mental illness, to the people that are afflicted with it. Which leads us to a scene found in The Killing Joke, in which Batman offers a unique statement.
"I don't want to hurt you. I don't want either of us to end up killing the other, but we're running out of alternatives. Perhaps it all hinges on tonight. I don't know what it was that bent your life out of shape, but maybe I've been there too. Maybe we could work together. I could rehabilitate you. You don't need to be alone. We don't have to kill each other. Let me help you."
I'm sorry, but no. No. It's far too late for that.
The Joker then refuses his offer, but then states an impactful joke. In fact, it's my favorite joke from the Joker.
"This reminds me of a joke. See, there were two guys locked in a lunatic asylum. And one night they decided they didn't like that anymore. They decided to escape. So they made it up to the roof, and there, just across this narrow gap, they see rooftops stretching across town, stretching to freedom. Now, the first guy, he jumps right across, no problem. But his friend, oh, no way. He's afraid of falling. So the first guy, he has an idea. He says, "Hey, I got this flashlight with me. I'll shine it across the gap between the buildings, and you can walk across the beam and join me." But the second guy says, "What do you think I am, crazy? You just turn it off when I'm halfway across." Oh, excuse me.
This joke is often interpreted in many different ways, but here is how I see it. That these two guys want freedom, while one managed to escape by taking the leap to another rooftop. The second was afraid of falling down. Now, the first guy wants to help, to use his flashlight to shine the pathway forward. However, the second just couldn't accept the help, because he couldn't begin to trust anymore. Personally, this joke speaks deeply about a much larger issue. How do we get people who need help to trust again when all else failed around them? This is what I mean by tragic comedy. A disastrous satire that speaks deeply about another issue. That the Joker film tells the tale of an outcome that may have gone differently provided the help. Back to the film. Arthur Fleck routinely goes to a psychiatrist to talk about his problems and receives medication, but really doesn't get the help or attention that he needs, as stated by the psychiatrist.
"They don't give a shit about people like you, Arthur. And they really don't give a shit about people like me either."
And that's the initial disaster of the story. In that world, people seldom think to be someone but themselves, believing that the downtrodden will just sit there and take it, and won't go wild. But ultimately, they really just wanted someone to listen and care. At any rate, as of this recording, Christmas is coming up, a time to give. And on this subject, maybe giving to acquaintances, friends, and family can do wonders. Even something as simple as getting a $5 game from Steam to a friend can honestly go a long way. Oftentimes, kindness can beget kindness. That we may not always agree, we still share a world with each other. As Aristotle once remarked, the marking of an intellectual is to entertain an idea without accepting it. The beauty of the human dynamic is dynamic. Flesh and blood humans like you and I will have an indeterminate effect on others. So instead of pushing others down, ridiculing, accusing, or attacking, perhaps we could enjoy a joke together. This video essentially encompasses my own take on the whole Joker controversy. Not so much of a movie review. Hope you gained something out of it. Sorry for the delay on this upload. I meant to get this one out way earlier, but personal stuff got in the way, plus I was hit with this fever. But it's all good now. At any rate, I'm actually really amazed at how well this channel is doing. The last video about Doom did way better than I thought it would. So in that regard, thank you so much for supporting Night Owl up to this point. I do have some special things in mind for future uploads, so stay tuned. Special thanks goes to Doom GC, Phronomophobia, Resistor, Avrith, Prison Island Head, Jay Antonucci, and Sabertooth59385. Thank you so much for donating, guys. If you want to see Night Owl continue on, donating as little as $1 over in Patreon will honestly go a long way. If not, liking and commenting also helps a great deal. Regardless of what happens though, have a wonderful rest of the day or night, and have a damn good one.
Devastation.